misconduct in office. The honourable members, I have to inform the Parliament of the death of the following former members. A. Mr. John Kekeno, on the 30th March 2023, a former member for Koroba Lake Kopiago Open Electorate. He was first elected in the 7th National Parliament in a by-election on 21 July 2006, prior to the 2007 general election, and was re-elected to the same seat in the 8th National Parliament from 2007 to 2012. During those terms, he served as a member of Parliamentary Referral Committee on Lands and Environment from 2007 to 2012. Mr. Yaro Lazaro, on the 13th May 2023, a former member for Alatau Open Electorate. He was first elected in the 4th National Parliament from 1987 to 1992, re-elected to the 5th National Parliament from 1992 to 1997, and the 6th National Parliament from 1997 to 2002. During those terms, he served as a member of Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts, Constitutional Law and Act, and Emergency between 1987 and 1998, and Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Plans and Estimate from 1989 to 1990. He was appointed Shadow Minister for Home Affairs and Youth and Shadow Minister for Communication from 1991 to July 1992. Minister for Fisheries and Marine Resource after the formation of government led by Mr. Pius Wingti as Prime Minister from 1992 to 1994. Shadow Minister for Provincial Affairs from 1995 to 1997, and Minister for Public Service from July to September 1997 after the formation of state government. He was appointed Minister for Finance from September to December 1997, then Minister for Treasury and Corporate Affairs from December 1997 to July 1999. Deputy Prime Minister in the state government from October 1998 to July 1999, and was elected as Speaker of the National Parliament in 13 July 1999, and resigned as Speaker after 1 day in office on 14 July 1999. He was appointed Vice Minister assisting the Prime Minister on State Affairs in September 1999 following the installation of the Morauta government till April 2002. The Minister for Public Service, Minister for Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs from July 2000 to 19 October 2001, and Chairman of Parliamentary Referral Committee on Public Service and Public Sector Reform in December 2001. As a mark of respect to the memory of the late honorable gentleman, I invite the honorable members to rise in their places. I thank the Parliament. Honorable members, I have to inform the Parliament that I have, in accordance with Section 110 of the Constitution, certified 5 acts made by the National Parliament. A list of this act will appear in today's minute of proceeding. Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery A. Honorable Simon Pentano, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Autonomous Bougainville Government. B. The staff and students from St. Charles Wanga Secondary Schools in the National Capital District are present in the Speaker's Gallery. On behalf of the Parliament, I extend the visitors a warm welcome in the National Parliament. Clerk, any petitions, notices? Honorable members, question time. The Honorable Member for Warrior.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lo look sour, Lord people blow warrior. Mr. Speaker, me taking this time too long. Congratulating you. Awesome. Now I think I'm happy birthday to you, so happy birthday, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker's question for me, I'm Bagolo, Mining Minister. But before me ask him this question, lo Mining Minister, Mila take him this time, lo look sour and welcome back. People belong Taripori. Na tu people belong Lay City. Na people belong Makamtu. Na people belong Papua New Guinea all gonna come back na no got one place in Bagarap. Lo this la house. Mr. Speaker, me talk people and because you me also nose na face na mouth belong all people belong you me. Speaker, question belong me long, Minister belong mining MOSM. Before lo me story, asking question me like give him some like legal talk under blow this la question. Wow bulolo. All pining gold long 1920s. Over 100 years all pining gold lo wow bulolo. You know now yet. Now lo this la time he come. No got one pla. Man Mary lo bulolo he come up in. Now lo this la sopla time tasol. Sample people blow warrior, sample people belong you me. All starting business lo small scale mining. Inside lo wow na bulolo. This la. Now, last year lo last session lo parliament, me come talk strong long exploration license. You may give him license way all legally man marry blow you may all work him alluvial activities. This time stop him all long, kiss him mining list. Need one time this la exploration older. Na sample time this la exploration license older. Em no sa arim talk blong em no sa permit mo. Me talk thank you, Minister. Em look sa lo this la question blow me na grievance blow me na em put him stop lo one particular exploration license EL 2544. But unfortunately, or Mr. Sawalo Disla or Nogat, all MRA now, or writing passing along all this small legal leaseholder. Now talk all by Rausim leases belong all. Mr. Speaker, all this lease legal small older lease, small mining leaseholders. All employ more people. All contribute lo this la economy blow this la country. White money come rousing me go. Na now me bla paponing ni yet like rousing gold blow me bla na salim. So, Mr. Speaker, question to me, Mosem. Minister, are you aware of this letter by MRA to the small leaseholders of Wawaria and Bulolo district that have been terminated because a particular exploration license holder is taking the exploration license over that area? If you are aware, Mr. Minister, what are you going to do about it? You have passed the law already in your Mining Advisory Council to stop that exploration license. But yet, MRA went ahead and gave the exploration license and terminate those small mining leases. That's my first question to the Minister. The second question is, it seems the law of this country is not allowing our small people to apply for mining lease. Exploration is okay, but the process to get the mining lease for alluvial purpose is a bit suppressive. Is the minister going to do something about that and allow our small people to apply for mining lease for alluvial purpose? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's my two questions to the mining minister.
The Honourable Minister for Mining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me firstly thank the member for Wawaria for giving me notice of his question. He WhatsApped his question to me a while ago, so I was able to do a bit of thinking. But thank you very much for giving me a bit of notice so I would be able to give you some good information. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Acting Speaker, the EL 254, this history of this license is very well documented in the system. This extension license was refused by the former minister in the last government. The minister later reinstated this license after he realized that there was a court order preventing him from making that decision. As a result of that decision, or the minister's decision, that wrongly cancelled or refused to extend the license, that ground, which is the subject of that EL, became available. And as a result of the ground becoming available, everybody applied for it. And that's where it became confusing. But as a result of the information that the court order was to prevent the minister from cancelling the license, the grounds for the rejection are no longer valid. It means that the ground is not available to be applied for. So that extension of the license that was refused by the minister is invalid. So that ground still stands. And the matter is in court, Mr. Speaker. And because the matter is in court, and by virtue of the rules of this Parliament, the matter becomes sub judice. That is, I cannot go into the details or the substance of the court decision. All I can say is that the license is, or rather, the ground is no longer available, so nobody can apply for it. In relation to the second question, Mr. Speaker, on your customary land, you are entitled to go into alluvial mining. But sometimes, while you have the right to go into alluvial mining, somebody had gone before you and applied for EL, exploration license. So you may be doing alluvial mining on your land, and somebody comes along and says, hey, you are mining on an area that I have a exploration license. So we have tried to clear up this confusion, but when you have your customary land, you cannot be stopped because you have the right to go into mining. All you have to do is inform MRA of the area that you are mining on or you are entitled to mine. But if your mining is on an area that is outside of your customary land, but within the area of EL, it is important that you inform the EL holder before you can go into with more sophisticated equipment. If you're just using your, the simple system, you don't have to get permission. But if you're going into a complicated machine mining, you need to get approval from the company that holds the EL. Mr. Speaker, I realize the member's concern because somebody has a mining license, exploration license, so you have to go to him all the time if you want to go into alluvial mining. But we have thought of a way to go around that problem. That is, we can, by way of determination from MRA, or rather, mineral, there is MRA, we will issue a direction by way of a condition on the license that you can mine on your land without getting approval from the EL holder. I think that's the specific problem you are referring to, and I think we have a solution. So if you are having that problem, just contact us and we will issue a direction as a condition of that license that the customary landowners can go in and mine without having to get your permission all the time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Governor Foro.
My questions are to the Prime Minister, and they're in relation to the recently signed Defense Cooperation Agreement with the USA and the shipwright agreement as well. I have two questions. One is in relation to that, and the other is in relation to the issue of World War II ordinance. As the Prime Minister is acting Foreign Affairs Minister, I felt it appropriate to direct these questions to him. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Prime Minister, in light of the recent Defense Cooperation Agreement and the shipwright agreement signed with the United States, there has been a growing concern among our constituents and critics that these agreements may not align with the best interest of Papua New Guinea. Could you please elaborate on the implications of these agreements for our nation, specifically addressing how they will impact our sovereignty, our economic stability, and the security of our citizens? Furthermore, could you also explain the measures taken to ensure that these agreements serve the long-term strategic interests of Papua New Guinea? Mr. Prime Minister, some of us support these agreements. I, for one, am very hopeful that these agreements will address growing transnational crimes in this country and how we will combat that. Perhaps the Prime Minister can elaborate on this. My second question is in relation to unexploded ordnance from the World War II era. Mr. Prime Minister, through you, Deputy Speaker, it has been nearly 8 decades since the end of World War II. Yet the remnants of that conflict continue to cause pain and suffering in many of our communities across our nation in our various provinces. My province in particular suffers from this situation. Every so often, citizens in my province, while going about their daily activities, stumble upon this ordnance, they explode, and they get harmed, hurt, injured, killed. Sometimes this ordinance is used by criminals. In fact, last night in Poponeda town, a bomb was set off, a World War II bomb, by certain criminals who have an ongoing feud with a group of people in their vicinity. Prime Minister, the unexploded ordnance from that era poses significant and ongoing threats. The nations involved in this conflict, Japan, Australia, and the United States, should be responsible in assisting us removing this ordinance so that our people can move about, do their business without threat or harm. Can the Prime Minister explain or give us some assurance that perhaps with this agreement, or perhaps in his position as the acting Foreign Affairs Minister, he can compel these nations, urge them to assist us so that we may remove this ordinance from a time, from a war that was not of our doing, but from which we continue to suffer. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister. Honourable Prime Minister, before you answer the question, we have a point of order from the opposition leader.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I think there are two aspects to that question, and I think the question relating to the treaty should be held back because none of us here have access to that treaty, and I think it's fair that when the government introduces this on the floor, then we can be able to debate it properly. Right now, he will answer this question without us having access to the document and what's in it, so we can assess better for ourselves. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
Honourable Opposition Leader, I made a ruling that the matter hasn't been on the notice paper of Parliament. Therefore, the Honourable Governor's question, I will ask the Prime Minister to go ahead and answer the question as it is.
All right, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Like Kissinis Law Time Law, talk good mahalo lo members of Parliament, ministers, governors, opposition leader. Thank you, you may come back long this media session. We look so long, all Sumatin Limi, from Charles Longa Secondary School. Thank you, blog up and Antar too. Of course, as I make response to this question, let me acknowledge all our people tuning in this session of Parliament. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Assistant Acting Speaker, we like to thank you, Governor Jufa, for asking an important question. Let me from the outset assure this Parliament that in this session of Parliament we will table the Defence Cooperation Agreement that was signed between Papua New Guinea and the United States of America. It is public. It will be a public document. On our side, will be transferred on the USA side. In every matter they sign with all nations, it is also posted out for everyone to have a note on this agreement. So it will be tabulated in this Parliament sessions. And I want to just, in a summary, noting that Parliament will have an opportunity to be speaking on this DCA. I think the question also alluded to the shipwrighter agreement. Firstly, from the outset, let me inform Parliament there is no breach of our country's constitution or all our country's law in totality. The Defence Cooperation Agreement is elevated from what we already have in as far as our relationship with the Australian Defence Force, French Defence Force, New Zealand Defence Force, Indonesia Defence Force, and USA. In 1989, there was an agreement called Status of Force Agreement that governed how all these different defence forces and their agents relate with Papua New Guinea Defence Force and our agents. that 1989 Status of Force Agreement emanates or was promulgated through the provisions of the Visiting Defense Forces Act of 1975. And the power from that act was sourced from Section 206 of our nation's Constitution. Our Constitution and the drafters of our Constitution, or our fathers of our country, envisaged, like all other nations do, every nation has foreign relations, government-to-government relations, and military-to-military relations with other nations. And anticipating that Papua New Guinea too as a country will be having relationship with other defense forces, the Visiting Forces Act of 1975 gives pathway, or gives us the basis, the legal basis to structure agreements with different defense forces that we will partner and we will work with. Historically, all nations that enjoy bilateral relationship with us have different scope of relationship in as far as defense force relation is concerned. And I give you an indication that with Australian Defense Force, we've always operated not only under the Status of Force Agreement of 1989, but it was elevated to a Defense Cooperation Agreement, similar to the one we're now elevating with U.S. defense. With the Australia, we're now looking, and our team from both sides, our legal team from both sides, as well as our foreign affairs team from both sides, and our defense team from both sides, are looking at elevating to a defense security treaty. That is a work in progress with us. It is being exchanged back and forth. That exchange allows for us to ensure that we are not breaking any of our country's law, and we are consistent in as far as entering into similar agreements are concerned. With the Defense Cooperation Agreement signed with USA, I want to inform this House clearly and from our front that due processes of any similar agreements to be signed were deployed. And I want to give confidence to our country that the Cabinet do not sit on or deliberate on papers that does not come up to the due processes. Anything that doesn't come up to the due processes will not stand the test of time. Any contest, for instance, any Section 18 reference by any citizen or any constitutional office like Ombudsman Commission, and if it goes before court, court will always rule in the favor of the laws of our country. So knowing this very well, our state solicitors, as custodian of the due processes, always advise the executive arm, any part of the executive arm that is funneling in a proposal, funneling in an agreement for Cabinet's consideration and Parliament's eventual consideration. All legal processes are deployed. All clearances are made. And I just want to encourage Papua New Guineans who are listening in. Don't buy into an off-the-cuff statement by one individual and suddenly you make to believe that social media is the authority. We have set processes in our country. Any executive government decisions come up through the set processes. And Prime Minister or Cabinet or ministers are bounded by decorum and protocol of those processes. We cannot, for instance, at every stage, when a concept is mounted and when the process is deployed until finally the policy is promulgated or agreement is brought together, Cabinet do not, sometimes by the fact that the protocol of the process dictate, we do not go out to everyone and indicate that this is happening. If we do this, no decisions will be taken for our country. I want to take this question to assure our country. Due processes of law governs how government enter into in these sort of agreements. And the same law, same constitution allows for Section 18 references, constitutional references. If any one citizen out there feels that it is not in order, you don't have to ban cars or cause public looting or jump up and down. A Section 18 reference is the pathway. The opposition leader has the ability to file a Section 18 reference. Any citizen who is qualified under Section 18 qualification can file an appeal and contest this sort of. So knowing that those check and balance are in place as a democratic country, we enter into those sort of agreements following on the due processes prescribed by law. And the DCA does not break any constitution. The DCA is similar to what we have with Australia and Indonesia, for instance, except this time around, it gives us direct relationship with Pentagon and Mari Barracks, direct relationship with Waigani and Washington, and not through a conglomerate or an associate of partners in the region sharing support to Papua New Guinea. We're now having direct line of sight with support with the United States. And let me also ask you, everyone, does not compromise our own relationship with Australia, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines, China, India, South Korea, UK and France. Those major partners we have bilateral, including Solomon Islands and Fiji and other nations closer to home. This is specific PNG USA Defense Cooperation Agreement. There is no provision in that Defense Cooperation Agreement that binds us from not relating to anyone, economically or in defense force side of relationship. And I want to give that full assurance that this is done in the best interest of our country. For instance, an associate signing that took place was a ship rider agreement. Ship rider agreement now gives opportune time, and when these are tabled on the floor, you will have a look. Gives PNG Navy the ability to co-patrol on U.S. Navy, has a provision for PNG Navy to also be on the boat, captain the boat, part of the ship that is in our country, and for the first time now gives us an oversight in terms of our water protection like never before. Today, we don't have a ability to have a full knowledge, real-time, live data access on what is happening in our waters or in our land. And we know a few instances where unmanned pilots have come in through plane, or a lot of time there's complaint that in high seas, there's fishing taking place, and there are transportations of unmanned goods and people taking place that we are not familiar with or unaccounted for. The ship rider agreement now gives us an access and partnership with U.S. Coast Guard. U.S. Coast Guard for our Navy to have accessibility and visibility in what is happening in our waters. In time, this will eliminate illegal fishing in our waters and hopefully eliminate illegal transportations, including possible illegal transportations of log or unaccounted for logging that is being shipped in many parts of our country. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we mean well in these agreements. It gives us an ability to have access to the biggest military on in the face of planet Earth for our local interests and not others' strategic geopolitical interests. Papua New Guinea's interest lies deep in these agreements that we have signed. For 48 years, our borders have remained unmanned, unpoliced, unguarded. It is our responsibility to step up in partnership and to build capacity of our defense force. It is an agreement for only 15 years. You look at the very last part of this agreement as it's tabled on the floor of Parliament, you will see a provision. Run this for 15 years. After 15 years, any party on either side has a right to give 1 year notice for termination of this agreement. Inside certain provisions of this agreement, any assets built in Papua New Guinea will remain the property of Papua New Guinea as we come out of the 15-year period. And so I want to assure this Parliament, in the present circumstances we are in, seeing the need for our own domestic security to step up and to protect also our own sovereign borders, we looked at USA as a defense force compatible to our mode of conversation, compatible to our spiritual worldview, compatible to our system of government, and compatible in our military-to-military exchanges and the way we'd like to step up our military in the line of sight to build capacity in our defense force and our Navy. This DCA was signed, and I will be honored and privileged through the Defense Minister to table a copy of this Defense Cooperation Agreement on the floor of Parliament for Parliament's peruse and deliberations. And I hope in that moment I will also provide further assistance to satisfy any or some of questions that you may all have as you go through the Defense Cooperation Agreement. It is done with best intent to help our defense force, needless to repeat, but when it comes and tabled here, all of you leaders will have access to this. And I gave assurance to the students at University of Technology and students at UPNG. They were having exams last week, so we could not visit them, but our State Solicitor, our Foreign Affairs Secretary, our Defense Secretary will visit our two institutions expressly and speak to them on the agreement, and they would be informed that it is no strange agreement, similar to what we have with Australia and New Zealand, but for the first time gives us straight line of access to Washington like never before. I want to, in the other question he asked on the World War II remnants, thank the Governor for raising this important question on the issues. I hear many bombs going off. The other time, Governor for East New Britain sent me a photo of many, many World War II bombs being excavated from public sites, from villages in the Gazelle Peninsula and Kokopo and Rabaul area. And let me, sorry, by the way, acknowledge the Honorable Alan Marat being present here. Although you unseated a Pangu member, but it's a process of court. This is a democratic country. Everyone's entitled to go to court. We welcome you back to the floor of Parliament. But having said this, there are many, many World War II remnants in all parts of our country. Taking this question again, I will inform both Japan, the government of Japan and the government of USA. And in the USA, this DCA also entails some of these things. There will be key strategic sites they will be working, including picking up on the legacy issues of the World War II and coming back. So those will be issues we worked upon. We want no unsafe area in our country in respect to the World War II remnants. So thank you for asking these questions. I will inform the two embassies here, and I will get back to you, Governor, and also through the Parliament, since this is a Parliament question. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Rabaul.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. My questions without notice is for the Minister for Civil Aviation to respond to. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the questions concern the integrity of performance of contracts for the construction of runways throughout the country, aircraft runways. And these questions are being asked with a view to especially Tokwa Airport in the East New Britain province. Many comments have been made following the downgrading of flights to and from Rabaul, especially to Rabaul, because of the quality of the runway of Tokwa. Now, my questions concern safety. A lot of comments have been expressed by traveling public on their downgrading of their flights, and especially on the risk of aircrafts crashing because the runway was shortened. Now, my main question is, does the Minister have any intention to review especially the quality of runways throughout the country? When you compare runways throughout this country with runways in other developed countries, their runways are built of better quality materials than ours. So my question is whether the Minister responsible is going to undertake a review, especially of performances, the specifications, whether specifications for the construction of runways are being met by the contractors. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Civil Aviation.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I would like to thank also the member for Rabaul, and at this juncture to congratulate him and welcome him to the Parliament on behalf of my people in the Matanai, New Ireland Province. In relation to the Honourable Member's question, yes, there was an incident that happened at the Tokua runway in relation to pavement failure. The incident took place around the 21st of May, and my office was reported on the 24th of May. Just by way of background, the Japanese government through JICA built the Tokua Airport and runway after the volcano eruption back in September 1994, and construction was completed back in 1998. Since then, there's been some minor attention given to the runway, but the deterioration of the runway has occurred because of the constant heavy aircraft landing and taking off at that particular airstrip. In relation to going forward, NAC, the National Airport Corporation, who's responsible for Tokua Airport and airports alike, have issued what we call a NOTAM, a notice to airmen, that the certain section of the runway cannot be used, and the exact measurement of that particular section is 161 meters in Bagarap, and it encompasses 600 meters from what they call the 28 approach, meaning the approach towards the Buka end of the runway. So that has shortened the runway length to about 1,000 meters. So we've notified the industry, we've notified the public, and I would like to use this as well to notify the public, to reiterate that due to the conditions of the runway, we've got to now downgrade the aircraft, unfortunately. And the only aircraft now that can actually use the runway and its current length, avoiding the peeling of the pavement end, will be only a Dash 8 for now. No more Fokker 100, no more Q400 aircraft, or ATRs for that matter. It's only now a Dash 8. And this will go on for 2 weeks as we're trying now to look into the methods to try and resolve the issue. Our action plan so far from NAC perspective is we have now airlift, what we call premix tar, that's going to go and quickly repair that particular 161 meter area. That will take about a couple of weeks. NOTAM has been issued, so no heavier plane other than a Dash 8 can land on that runway, have been given. So it'll take about 2 weeks to remedy the issue. NAC is on top of it. NAC is attending to the matter, and we're trying to do it as quickly as we can to get normalcy back to the runway operating normally again. In terms of long term, which is basically one of your questions you've asked, Tokua Airport, I admit, and most of us leaders who've traveled in and out of Tokua, has deteriorated a lot. and it's on the board or the plan focus of NAC to try and improve the airport and the runway. So in relation to answering that question, there is current discussions happening now with the Japanese government to see whether they're happy to take on that responsibility to come back and upgrade the airport, boat terminal and runway. And that discussion is on foot right now, so I cannot elaborate too much until the agreement is actually signed. There's also discussion about looking at trying to incorporate the upgrade of Tokyo Airport, boat terminal and runway under an ADB, Asian Development Bank arrangement. As we're all aware that the CADEP 2 have been signed already, but we're trying now to introduce some other important airports that we feel that have been left out and try to introduce that discussion and try to negotiate to fit them in. So that's where we're at right now. Priority is take Tokyo Airport, as it is all other major airports within the country, and we'll do our best to make sure we get that airport up and running sooner rather than later. Thank you, Honourable Member, for your question.
You have a supplementary, Deputy Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst it is good to hear the Minister say that there is something being done at Takua, I would like to ask the good Minister if he would agree with me. There is a need currently, a very big need within your organization and within CASA in terms of the inspectors. There is a lack of inspectors within the country, and especially within CASA and within your own organization. And I say this because I'm not here to guess. I've been involved in a meeting, and I won't get into that because the report will come to this Parliament. But I'm reliably informed that CASA lacks inspectors, and if it is true, would you confirm that? And number one. The reason being, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this failure below this airport was visible, was already visible. And why all inspectors are not been walking walk blow to identify it before it happened? Because now we have put the plane at risk and the passengers' lives at risk. Are we going to continue to allow that to happen to other airports as well? You may already sabe, also Medan Airport runway am short, yet we still allow F-100 and F-70s to land. And sorry, Minister, but we cannot continue to deny the fact. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Opposition Leader. I was just about to rule out your supplementary. We'll submit out of the question the Honourable Member for Rabaul have said, but you have already raised the question, so I'll allow the Minister to make your question answer short.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, the Honourable Member, for his supplementary question. In relation to lack of inspectors with CASA PNG, I am not aware of the lack of inspectors. But having said that, may I add, this is why we're a member to the International Civil Aviation Organization. Because any shortfall that we experience within countries, we can draw on those expertise to support us. All right? So, yes, on one hand, we could be lacking, which I've yet to get a report and confirm that statement, that comment. But secondly, I would like to provide reassurance that we do have access to outsource the engineering component or inspectors if we need them to come in. Okay? That's in relation to CASA PNG. All right? In relation to inspecting airports, we're doing our best within the means that we have and the budget allocation that we have, Honourable Speaker. Budget constraints is also one of the challenges that we're experiencing at CASA PNG right now, and that also can limit in terms of what sort of exercise inspection that we can carry out. Right now, our immediate focus as well is to make sure that our national carrier is meeting the necessary requirements and having planes in the air to carry all of us to and from our homes. That also requires a lot of attention, and we've been lending the necessary advice to New Guinea to try and focus on certain areas that we, CASA PNG, has identified that needs immediate attention for them to attend to. So I believe CASA PNG is in a position to accommodate, to facilitate. If there's any shortfall, I will get a report, and I'm happy to advise Parliament on that specific question, whether we have enough inspectors or not. But let me reassure everybody, Parliament, that if we do need inspectors, we do, as a member to the International Civil Aviation Organization, we do have access to expertise to lend support in areas that we may not have any expertise on. All right? So tokila tasol. Thank you.
The Honourable Governor from Morobe.
Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Member, sorry, I did not add you on the supplementary question. I've asked the member, Governor for Morobe already to speak, so I'll ask. You can preserve your supplementary question and ask tomorrow in the Parliament session as a new question. Governor from Morobe.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Governor, I think I've had many other members addressing the chair as Deputy Speaker. I'd like to inform all of you as an acting speaker for the handset purpose. So address the chair as an acting speaker. Honourable Governor, go ahead.
Mr. Acting Speaker. And Mr. Acting Speaker, I withdraw my addressing you, the Deputy Speaker, from the answer. Mr. Speaker, or Acting Speaker, my question, not on notice, will be directed to the Honourable Prime Minister of this country. But before I issue that question, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Honourable Member-elect through the Court of Disputed decision, the Honourable Member for Rabaul, the Honourable Alan Malat. I congratulate you, my teacher of criminology at the University of Papua New Guinea, and you're very well versed with the laws, and the Parliament needs you, and you're back. Congratulations. Secondly, Mr. Acting Speaker, I'd like to pass my congratulations on behalf of the people of Morobe to the ex-members who have passed away. Heavenly Father has called them, Mr. John Kekeno and Yaro Yasaro. They have been a very active member. They were a member of Parliament when I was a member of Parliament at the time. They have contributed immensely to anything that went on in the Parliament and, of course, in the electric duties. And I passed my congratulations, sorry, not congratulations, condolences to them. Mr. Acting Speaker, my questions will be directed to the Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, I will be asking a question in relation to the former Minister for Foreign Affairs and Member for South. South, what do you call it, in South NCDC or South Mosby. Before I ask that question, I want to make it very clear to the floor that he is my good brother, very good brother, and I respect him. I highly respect him because since he entered this country, he has done something very good for this country, particularly in the promotion of nature. He was make sure that the flowers are well grown, and he taught us to make sure that we grow good flowers and keep our city clean and tidy and proudly for our attention and for our satisfaction, and we feel lively because we're part of the nature. So I thank him, and then he established a nature park up there. He did a good job, and as a minister, member of parliament, he did a good job. But something bad happened, with the greatest respect, and I ask him to take no offense from what I'm going to ask, say, comment, and question now. The social media have printed statement allegedly saying that the former minister has blended the people of this country, primitive and animals. That, whether it was true or not true, or half true or quarter true, we don't know, but there must be something truth in there. Mr. Acting Speaker. Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker. The Acting Speaker. And that remark, in my humble view, is highly derogatory. Highly derogatory. And also he is highly offensive to the minds and the thinking and the hearts of the people of this country. And Mr. Prime Minister, I understand you have condoned him and invited the citizens of this country to condone him. That is your view, with the greatest respect. But this matter is a very serious matter. Very serious matter. And we have given our brother, he's from a different country, but we have given him, graciously given him, to become the citizen, acquired citizenship of this country, and made sure that he was voted into this parliament. It's the highest honor that we give it to him. And he's a leader. And when that statement came out,
Honorable Governor,
that is highly not acceptable.
Honorable Governor,
Mr. Prime Minister, Acting Speaker, I'm going to ask the Prime Minister now.
yes, please, go ahead and ask your question.
I ask the Prime Minister, Mr. Acting Speaker, Prime Minister, no offense to you. What actions that you're going to take, if any, on those derogatory, highly derogatory remarks? What actions are you going to take, and what are you going to tell this country through this parliament where the buck stops? What actions you have taken, or any actions you're going to take? That's one. Two, I'll kindly invite you, are you going to direct the former foreign minister to give a statement to this parliament?
Honorable Governor, we have a power blackout. I would ask you to resume your seat, and I'll ask the clerk to check on the power, and then I can ask you to continue your question.
Is on?
Honorable Governor, the power is back, our mic is still on, so we'll ask you to continue on with your question.
My last question, Mr. Acting Speaker, is that are you going to direct the honourable member? I'm not sure of the position. He's a minister, but he's not going to perform the function of the minister, so we can call him a minister. Or I'm not sure about his status, but I'm asking you whether you're going to get the minister to give a statement in this parliament to tell his nation why, if he did, why he made that highly derogatory statement, highly offensive to the citizens of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Prime Minister. Point of order. point of we'll have to wait until the Prime Minister respond to the question, then you can ask your supplementary. Unfortunately, member, our question time have already been lapsed. The Prime Minister will answer the question, and if you have a new question related to that, you can ask. We have to ask that question tomorrow. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Me like talk thank you, Governor Morobe. No asking this question, he come long issue from the Honourable Justin Chachenko. Mr. Deputy Speaker, me like giving belly seal of Parliament or some leader long must be south when we talk. Long ask him leave of Parliament tomorrow, long seeking personal explanation. Today long government caucus, let me give him bell sorry blocken. Long members of Parliament, let me talk long leave blocken long government caucus, let me talk. This will talk blocken, you know, mean emi karama mogara country nogat. Emlo said only bagara bi pigini gel blocken. Long social media, Facebook, all the attack on her daughter caused him to make the statement in reference to those who were attacking his daughter. So he made a address to us in government caucus today, and if he has offended any one of us, then he did apologize and Togolsem. I'm also Togolsem tomorrow I must ask in Parliament and will make him talk. So explaining to the country that I'm in a minimum of the country, man very limited label in one of them talk. Tomorrow I met by explaining to the country and by making clarity. And so Mr. Deputy Speaker, me like ask him Governor Morobe, also Lara Yumi, receive him right Logan, make him talk to Logan tomorrow. By me, Haram talk to Logan to the Parliament. Let me know, in as far as advice me, kissing me consent. Relevant constitutional office, lo deal want any integrity matter, lo leader and staff. And this law office only get right to make it work. So I was only feel as a leader and looking public trust or looking on the law of the country. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, tomorrow I'm addressing, or not addressing, addressing Parliament or making talk to the Parliament. But today I may make him talk sorry lo people, all the members of Parliament, lo government caucus. Talk to Bloni come clear, me talk. Me make him talk long online way background in beginning medical me long social media and panels. So tomorrow, Deputy Speaker, the Parliament, he give him leave lo and we can make him talk to